Hello students, welcome back to the biology class. So in the last class we continued the 21st chapter, that is the neural control and coordination, and we discussed in detail the midbrain, the hindbrain as well as the cranial nerves. We learned about the cerebrospinal fluid also in the last class. We learned that the midbrain is the smallest portion of the brain, and it consists of basically two structures which are crura cerebri and corpora quadrigemina. We learned that the crura cerebri is the portion through which the connection of the third ventricle to the fourth ventricle takes place, and we learned that the crura cerebri, also called as the cerebral peduncles, are responsible for connecting the forebrain to the hindbrain, and the corpora quadrigemina, they control the reflexes which are linked with the sight as well as hearing. So there are four swellings, that's why they are called as corpora quadrigemina. The two superior one and two inferior one. The superior ones are for the visual reflexes and the inferior one are for the auditory reflexes. We learned that the midbrain is called as mesencephalon. And then we learned in the last class that the second largest portion of the brain is the cerebellum, which is the part of the hindbrain. Hindbrain, we learned, is called as the rhombencephalon, and the cerebellum is called as the epencephalon. Along with the pons veruli, the cerebellum is called as the metencephalon, and we learned that it lies behind the cerebrum and above the medulla oblongata. We learned that the cerebellum carries three parts, the two lateral cerebellar hemispheres and one median vermis. The grey matter, just like in the whole portion of the brain, is towards the outside and the white matter towards the inside. And we learned that there is a special tree-like appearance of the white matter in the cerebellum, which is called as arbor vitae. And it is believed that the soul of a person lies there, or consciousness lies there. We learned that there are three pairs of peduncles which come out of the cerebellum. One is superior, which joins to the midbrain, the middle one which joins to the pons, and the inferior one joins with the medulla oblongata and the spinal cord. We learned that the cerebellum's main function is to maintain equilibrium and the muscular activities also. The last portion of the hindbrain is the medulla oblongata, which is called as the myelencephalon. And it is a long cylindrical part which carries the fourth ventricle, and we learned that in its interiormost portion the medulla oblongata has grey matter intermixed with the white matter, and in the posterior portion it is just like the spinal cord, grey matter towards the inside and the white matter towards the outside. One important point we learned in this concept is that the sensory and the motor nerve tracts, they cross over from one side to the other side in the medulla oblongata, and this is responsible for the right part of the brain controlling the left part, vice versa. We also learned that ventricles present in the medulla oblongata is connected to the spinal ventricle, which is also called as the central canal. And the medulla oblongata plays an important role because involuntary movement control centers, the respiratory control center, cardiac control center, swallowing, vomiting, peristalsis, coughing, sneezing, salivation. So many of the control centers are present in the medulla oblongata. We learned about the pons veruli, that it is the pons bridge which connects the cerebellum with cerebrum, medulla as well as spinal cord. And it is the relay center through which the various parts of brain are connected, and it has the pneumotaxic center which controls the breathing pattern. We also learned that brain stem is the part of the brain between spinal cord and thalamus. So as per the NCERT, it is the midbrain and hindbrain which constitutes the brain stem. We learned about the cerebrospinal fluid in the last class, that it is a clear colorless fluid which is present in the cavities of the brain as well as the spinal cord, and also present surrounding it in the meninges. We learned that its pH is 7.3, and it is present in the ventricle of the brain, central canal of the spinal cord, and is present in the subarachnoidal space of meninges. Its volume is 80 to 150 ml, and it is filtered out from the blood in the anterior choroid plexus and the posterior choroid plexus and passes back into it. It contains proteins, amino acids, glucose, respiratory gases, urea, and salts of various types. The importance of the cerebrospinal fluid is to moisten the central neural system and maintain the constant internal pressure, provide buoyancy so that the brain seems to be lighter and acts like an external shock absorber, and then the hormones from the brain are released into the blood through the cerebrospinal fluid, and it picks up the oxygen and food for the brain and passes out the carbon dioxide and urea to the blood. We learned the certain unique features of the human brain. That human brain it contains a solid and small olfactory lobe. Rhinocele is absent. We learned that the cerebral hemispheres are large in the case of human brain, and then the gyri are present, which increase the surface area of the cortex. The two cerebral hemispheres are linked with the help of corpus callosum in the case of human brain, and pineal body is small. Cerebral hemispheres divisible into four lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. And then the thalamus, the hypothalamus contains the body which is called as the mammillary body. And then there are solid cerebellum with three portions: the two lateral cerebellar hemispheres and the central median vermis. Arbor vitae is present in the cerebellum, is an important again feature of the human brain. And pons varolai is present in the human brain, and there are three meninges which cover the brain. These are the important features or unique features of the human brain. We learned about the cranial nerves also in some detail in the last class. We learned that there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves which come out from the brain, and they are also called as the cerebellar nerves, and they spread laterally as nerves as well as the ganglia. And we learned that the fishes and amphibians, they have 10 pairs of cranial nerves, and rest of the vertebrates, they carry 12 pair of cranial nerves. We learned that the zero pair of the cranial nerve is absent is not functional in the case of the human brain, and that's why we don't respond to the pheromones released into the air. But in the other animals it is working. So in the case of human, we just have the 12 pair of cranial nerves, which are olfactory, optic, oculomotor, pathetic, trigeminal, abducens, facial, auditory, glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory nerve, and the hypoglossal nerve. Out of them, some of them are sensory, some are motor, and some of them are mixed in nature. The vagus is the longest one, trigeminal covers the largest portion, and the trochlear or pathetic one is the smallest one.